Hi folks, welcome to Disability Landscape. I am Mark Knudsen, and as usual, joining me today, my co-host is Charlie Brose. And Charlie, why don't you introduce and say what we're going to be talking about?
All right, thank you, Mark. Today we have someone that's been a big part of our lives for at least our high school years.
Yep.
And then some. We're here with Ed Prohofsky, and going to give you just a little bit of Ed's bio here, and that bear with me, it may take a little bit.
Okay.
He began coaching in 1957 at Army's Killeen Base in Texas, where his team won the fourth Army Championship. He began teaching elementary school in 1959. He went on to Marshall University, where he coached basketball and had an overall record of 140-10, including a 53-game winning streak between 1974 and 1980. So from there, he went on to become assistant coach to Flip Saunders at Golden Valley Lutheran College from 80 and 81. Then he went on to coach Hamline University from 1989 to 81 to 89. Sorry. Let's see. Then, let's see. We had a lot of holes there. But from 1997, to 2004, he also assisted Flip at Minnesota Timberwolves. And then from 2004 to 2005, he was McAllister College. And then from 2006, he was an assistant with the Minnesota Lynx. And also a member of 5 Hall of Fames. But we're not here to talk about his basketball career. Ed was also a pioneer in introducing adapted sports to Minnesota State High School League, and it is the only state to sanction adapted athletics. Mark, where do we go from there?
Well, thank you for this. Welcome to the show.
Goodness sakes.
I know, yeah. I hopefully we still have some more time left on the show to talk with you. And
that wasn't really me, was it?
No, we obviously first met when Charlie and I were in high school, and you were our Phys Ed teacher. And back at that time, I mean, how did you become interested in teaching, adaptive Phys Ed? How did you end up doing that?
I'm going to say one other thing before we get into that.
Oh, please do, yep.
In all the places I've been, and all the different things that I've done in basketball, and I loved every bit of it. It was really special. And came to Marshall, and we came into this thing where we were together. I'll talk a little bit about that later.
Yep.
And then with all the different coaching places that I was, and the good things that have happened to me, nothing was better. Nothing was better in my life. For my family was the adapted program, plus my wife and I and the kids when they were young, we went to United Cerebral Palsy at the building, and we ran a Friday night program for adults.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
I
our
didn't know
family
that.
did. And so it's been a big part of my life.
Okay.
And like I said, the best part. When I first started out as a substitute teacher, I was teaching elementary, and I was looking for a basketball job too, but I needed a job.
Right. Yeah.
And so I ended up taking somebody. I was doing some substitute teaching, but then in January, there at one of the elementary schools in Minneapolis, they had a person that was teaching the program, physical education, wasn't going to be back because he was ill, and so I took over. And not even thinking about anything that has to do with people with disabilities or kids.
Right.
There were some kids in Hale School that were deaf.
Okay.
And the person that was there before me, when they brought the class, we came 1 or 2 days a week. And to Hale, I was at 1 day a week.
Okay, gotcha.
And what happens is that each class had come down, and the kids that were hard of hearing or deaf came down with their class. And they ended up climbing the stall bars on the wall.
Oh, right, yeah.
While everybody else was learning something about physical education.
Oh.
And so that was happening to me, and I had a real tough time with it because, I mean, not knowing anything about being disabled or anything like that,
Right.
or being involved, I felt really uncomfortable about having them do that.
Right, yeah.
So they ended up coming in, and I tried to work them in, even though
Okay.
before, and it was kind of difficult. So what I did was, I was hired back, and I came back in, and before the school year started, I went to the principal and I said, you know, I'm really uncomfortable about the way we were doing things last year, and would it be okay if I brought all the kids in that were going to come in that were having problems with their hearing?
Yep.
If I brought them in the morning before everybody else came in and explained to them what we were going to do, showed them what we were going to do, let them go through some of that, and then when they came in and I was going to instruct everybody that, they knew what was coming. So they could
okay.
be involved with everything
Right,
else.
exactly.
And then it became really special for me anyway.
Yeah.
And it was really nice. Well, things went well, and people in charge of, you know, the people with disabilities wanted to know if I wouldn't mind going to Calhoun School after school and try to help out after school.
Okay.
And they had kids that were blind or hard of,
Okay, so other kids with disabilities.
they
Yep.
had, right. So then I ended up spending that time there, and I'm starting to get and enjoying it.
Right.
That went well. They asked me if I would go teach at Michael Dowling, and that went well. And the kids that were advancing from Michael Dowling would go to Marshall.
Right.
And
Were you full-time then when you were at Dowling? Were you
I was full-time at Dowling, yes.
Full-time at Dowling. then, huh?
and started an adapted program, adapted physical education program.
That's it, yeah, because you must have been there right before I came, because yeah, when I was
I was already probably at Marshall then.
Yeah, you were at Marshall, so.
Well, then got there, and then I started to move in that direction, and it was pretty special. But the thing that was unusual, and I didn't have any idea how they operated, was the students that had disabilities at all of Minneapolis. They didn't have to go to their school.
Sure.
They'd end up coming to Marshall,
Marshall.
because they didn't.
Yep.
We had a way for dealing with that, plus the western suburbs. So they started coming, and next year I was there for 1 year, and just coming in just to work with the adapted program, and then a basketball sophomore job opened up.
There you
So
go.
I took that, and
Okay.
then now I'm in on two ends. I'm starting to move up in the basketball world, and things are going better and better. Well, now they allowed, all of a sudden the rules changed, and kids with disabilities could go to their own schools.
Okay.
So what we would still get kids in there,
Yep.
and we were playing in, you know, a lot of different athletic things, and you guys were in those things.
Great. Oh yeah.
And
I must say I thought the most, because we did all the sports. We did football, using a Nerf football. We did the wiffle ball. All those were fun. And the one thing I found that was, I didn't think it would be fun when I heard we were going to do it, but it was kind of actually fun, was doing volleyball with a balloon.
Yeah. With the giant balloon.
Yeah, with the giant balloon, because you would go, and of course, just like any volleyball, you had to keep it off the ground. But you never knew when you whacked it, if it was going to be that time when the balloon pops. So. Go ahead. But
I've got a lot of stories I could tell about the popping balloons. There was
save
one
that.
time. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
There was
please
one
do,
time
please
early.
do. Yeah.
There was one time early that there were just eight boys in the class,
Okay.
and having this kind of a discussion and having all kinds of fun. And you know what the gym area looked like? You know, it's
right.
a regular gym,
Yeah.
and then there's that little small one, and it had mats on it in there.
Right, yeah, the little
like
off
wrestling
to the
gym.
side, that wrestling room, yeah.
And so I took the 8 guys in there on the mat, and we wrestled. We wrestled all together. It was tremendous. No, things were going really well. That was fine. Well,
I never had to wrestle.
No, I didn't do that but one time.
Yeah.
Well, then things started to move in the right direction,
Okay.
and other people were doing it, and pretty soon we put together something called the Minnesota Associations for Adapted Athletics.
Yes.
And what happened there is I just put some names down, some
Yep.
of the people that
Yep.
were on the board and from different schools.
Sure.
And I'm not even sure I can remember what schools they were at, but Clyde Riddle, I think, was at
I think it was Fridley. correct?
Fridley,
Yeah,
right, thank
Fridley,
you.
yep.
At Fridley. Lloyd Olson was in Robbinsdale.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl Miller was in Anoka, I think, maybe.
Sounds familiar, yes.
I think so, yeah.
And then Chris Swanson Scones was in St. Paul.
Okay.
Ed Cinto was in Edina. And then George Hansen was in the athletic department for the Minnesota, all of
Okay.
Minnesota.
Okay.
And he was a part of it. And when we started, we put that together to see if we can, because now that everybody wanted to get involved, so we could start up the program, so we
Yeah,
have an
and that was
athletic
after,
program.
and I mean, that was even after a few years, because I remember when we first started, when we first had our team, it was basically 4 teams. It was the Marshall U team,
Right.
the the Minneapolis Independents, and then St. Paul had a Humboldt team, and then they had the St. Paul Independents, and that was it for a few years, and then it branched out.
Well, there was even things that started even before that,
Oh,
but that's all right because we can go from there.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Well, anyhow, things were going well, and
Okay.
many times I went to the state high school league, and the head of the high school league at that time was David Stead, who was a great guy, but the whole issue when I was pushing to try to get this thing going so that it would be something that the high school league could take care of, and well, it was the whole money situation. They didn't want to deal with the money.
Right.
And so I kept going back, and we were getting bigger. You know, not with the high school league, we were on our own.
Right.
And it was
Yep.
starting to move. And, you know, I can't remember, it was maybe 8 or 10 schools that were playing against each other. And little by little, we were going along. It was almost 10 years before I actually got a chance to go talk to them, to everybody else. But the person that really made it happen was a person that ended up being the athletic director at South High School, and she was there also doing the adapted program. But I'm going to step back a little bit, and because when we were doing hockey, we had some students that were really interested in making things happen in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
So it was Jim Christie
Yep.
and
Yep, our
Bob
friend Jim.
Anderson.
Yep. Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
And they came up to me one time in class and said, why can't we earn letters and get jackets like everybody else?
Yeah.
I said, woo, that sounds pretty good. I don't know why we can't do that.
Right.
So that's when I really started to push hard with the high school league. And Kathy became a board member. So a lot of the times
Oh,
I couldn't
okay.
get the high school league to back us up. When Kathy got down there, and she was on the board.
On the board.
She was representing South High School. She was on the board, and she knew about Jim. She knew
Yeah.
about South High School.
Yeah.
And so it was real easy for me to talk with her, and she got all fired up about it and was the one that really got the high school league to come and listen to us.
Come and listen. Yeah, because Jim, I at that time, I believe, because he was a special ed teacher, and he
Right.
was at South High at that time. And him and Bob, then didn't they also sit down and kind of made the first rule book for the Minnesota Adapted?
They took the regular National Hockey League rule book
Okay.
and rewrote the book
Yes.
for adapted athletics for our school.
If there's one person who could do that, is Bob. Bob was very meticulous. Yeah.
No, I mean that helped a lot. And
Yeah, those two
they
did
were
put a
very
lot.
well. Even when, going back to South High School,
Yep.
Jim didn't coach or didn't run adapted athletics.
Right.
He was taking care of the kids.
Right.
And
Exactly.
he had kids with disabilities.
Yep.
Taking them different places, teaching them how to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim was an exceptionally smart person to take care of kids the way he did.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
I can't think of anybody that didn't really actually love Jim Christie.
No, I know. I mean, Jim
Yeah.
was, well, for me, he was our good friend, and for me, he was the best man in my wedding, and he's the godfather to my son,
Yeah.
Kyle. So Jim knows I had a lot of respect for him, but every time, whenever I saw him, I always gave him a hard time, and I think he would smile and he enjoed it, because needless to say, Jim could take it.
That's right. Jim
Right?
could. That's
Jim-
exactly
Jim-
right.
But you're right. He, to me, I got from Jim. He knew how to get to the special ed kids.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Kathy Peterson, who became adapted Phys Ed teacher with her athletic director job,
At South High School, yep.
would when Jim would take his students out to different places to teach them about different things, there were many times that she would go along.
Oh, she did.
Yeah,
that? Okay.
and so that their relationship grew, which made it easier for her to be able to push it.
Oh, right.
At the high school
So
league.
she understood the importance.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to go back just a little bit because when we first started, there wasn't any adapted athletics or adapted physical education. There
Right.
wasn't any when we started doing that.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was at the university, adapted physical education was you went in there and you lifted weights and things of that sort,
Yeah.
running and all that kind of business. And nothing had to do with what we wanted to do.
Right. Right.
And at that time, they opened up a class at the university for
At the
adapted
University of Minnesota, right?
Right.
Yep.
For adapted physical education. And there was a professor named Dr. Wilson, and she was learning about it as well.
Okay.
And of course, I went to take the class because I needed to learn more about different
The
disabilities
actual
as well.
disabilities themselves. Yep.
So I went there, and because she wasn't really sure about how to do with this, and we had been teaching physical education
Right.
for a little while already.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we had to do in class was everybody in that class had to come and visit my classes so they could see what was going on. Easiest day I ever had, and it was good.
I'm glad we could help you.
And at
You
that
sure
point,
did.
you were still making it up as you went along.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, anyhow, the time came, and once Kathy got there, then the high school league invited me, and I took
Right.
this guy with me.
Yeah. You and Jim asked me to go, and I didn't want to go, but I didn't dare say no. So.
Well, we went to the Minnesota High School League's yearly meeting with the athletic directors from all over the state of Minnesota.
Okay.
And there were, my estimate at that time, I think, was about 100 student or athletic directors.
Okay.
And so we talked about what it was all about and the whole situation was and why we were doing it and where we were and how the Minnesota Association for Adapted Athletics was doing everything the Minnesota State High School League was doing. And we wanted them just to take over because it would be a better situation all the way around.
Right.
So they had this yearly meeting, and I got up and had to talk. Mark had to talk.
Yeah, I think I talked after you, because when you were talking, I was like, oh, please take up all the time so I don't have to talk.
Well, one of the things probably the thing that I thought was the most thing that made a difference was that when the people started coming up there, and what I had said to everybody before that person could come and talk up there was that, well, I'm not even sure where we were going to go with that, had to do with what I said was that, if you had 3 kids in your home,
Right, yep.
3 kids in your home, and you didn't have very much money, would you keep one kid from not having to be a part of your family? Or would you work out how the money works out so that all 3 could eat?
Sure.
When I'm asking for the same thing. I would like the Minnesota High School League would take over this program and give them exactly what everybody else is getting. And then he asked the first person that came up to the mic to talk about it. And I said to Mark, I said, well, here he comes with the money issue. And this guy got up, and he got up there and he said, I wrote his Al Sigley. and I can't remember the school he's from, was up north someplace. He came up there and I said to Mark, well, here comes the money issue. And he got up there and he said, you know, he said, I have a daughter who was a basketball player. She was in a car accident, was in a wheelchair, and she plays basketball right now and loves every minute of it. He said, if you people don't put this program in this the Minnesota program, he says, you don't belong in your job. And he sat down.
Oh, wow.
Nobody else went to the mic.
Yeah.
And they took the vote, and they voted 100%
Wow.
for the high school league to start doing it again. And that's how
so
it
it
started.
wasn't my speech then.
It might have been your speech.
But
But no, that's very true. I mean, it hit right at the point, and I just don't. When I had spoke, the very last thing I said this stuff. It's important because for us kids to be on a team, responsibility, leadership, and all that.
And win that letter jacket.
Right, exactly. Win that letter jacket. And the last thing I said also, it's important for our parents to be able to see us compete and out there, and for them to be able to say things to the referee.
yeah.
I'll tell you one person that gentleman, it was a tournament, and I was at the tournament, and this father came up to me, and he said, can I talk to you for a minute? I said, of course. He said, I wanted my kid to be an athlete. And then he became, in a situation where he couldn't deal with it, and he was going to other programs. And when I saw him play in the adapted program, he said, I couldn't have asked for anything more than to be able to see my son playing athletics, even though he's not capable to play in the regular high school team.
Right, yeah. Yeah, the able-bodied league.
And he had tears in his eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And
For a lot of the parents, it's their first time seeing their kids compete.
yeah. But what you said was true.
Right.
Their parents learned how to operate against the officials just
Right.
like everybody
'Cause
else.
I mean,
did.
you knew my dad.
Yeah.
And you knew he didn't stay quiet at times, right, Mr. Prohofsky?
No, it was a tremendous thing.
But then he might have picked it up from watching you coach and talk to the refs too, so I don't know.
Well, the refs never bothered me. They make mistakes just like all of us.
Oh,
do.
right. No, I understand.
Yeah.
Let's, kind of there's a timeline here where, the play started in 1974 as at a competitive level. And I was glad to be part of the, first couple of years.
Yes, you were.
I
Yep,
was there in
same here.
1976, the first season that I played. But the high school league acceptance didn't happen until 1992.
That's the period that we were trying to get them to
Right.
move in our direction.
Right. It was a long, hard fought battle.
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly what happened. Thanks to Kathy and to
Yeah.
Jim. And
And
you
so-
guys.
And you, I mean, we, like anything, you got to have the right pieces of the puzzle in place for it to
Right.
happen.
And the first tournament started taking place in '94. They were sanctioned by the high school league, and it's been fairly smooth sailing since then. But there are still challenges for the program.
Sure. But the program has grown quite a bit.
Oh yeah,
And there's still problems with the regular physical
Yeah.
education and athletics
Absolutely.
in
Yeah,
high
'cause
schools.
currently right now, I mean, it's been outstate now because there are teams in.
They even started bowling now.
yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Bowling is actually becoming one of the bigger programs
Yeah.
because they can do it independently at a local lane, and then they gather once a year for the state tournament.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there are teams in what cities? They're like Rochester, right? And
In the physically incapacitated, it's Rochester. There's Brainerd. There's 6 teams just in the Twin Cities area.
yeah, you should explain the two leagues within the high school.
Right.
league.
There's the physically injured or incapacitated, and then there's cognitive
Right.
disabilities. And cognitive right now is a larger part. They have, a lot more teams, but it's also easier to, gather the students with cognitive injuries.
Sure.
Right.
And there's probably a
Unfortunately, there's
larger
more that
portion.
way. There's
Yeah.
more kids that are in
Yeah,
that
in the
category.
cognitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, transportation wise,
Oh, yeah.
and that, and I think what I've always found interesting, too. I know even at Marshall U, when our fellow classmates would come and watch us play floor hockey,
Right.
they were surprised, like, man, you guys out there, you're really like kicking
Yeah.
butt out there, you know.
Well, we had
you guys really want to get out. You guys really want to win, and we're like, well, we're not out there to have. I mean, yeah, we want to have fun, but we want to win also. So I always thought that was a helpful thing where our fellow classmates saw the competitive side, you know, in us and that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I won't mention her name, but there was a woman in our program, well, a girl in our program that came from out of Minneapolis and was very uncomfortable with where she was.
Okay.
And she came to our program, and I won't tell you what the disability is because you know who it was right away.
Right.
And she came in and was really uncomfortable playing
Okay.
because she didn't like school. She came here and we were playing floor hockey, and I tried to get something for her to be able to enjoy the activity.
Yep.
I'm going to have to do something. She didn't have arms,
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
and so she had prostheses.
Yep.
And I tried to put tape, a stick into her prostheses.
Oh, right.
And then she was having a real difficult time to try to get down, and she
Yeah.
wasn't really having a good time. So I asked her if there was a way that you think we could play the game better. She says, well, could I just kick it with my foot? I said, well, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we started doing that. Well, now she's, you know, she eats with her feet. So, I mean,
It's
she
only-
became our best hockey player.
right.
And
And-
that's better than winning the state championship.
Yeah.
And it always cracked me up because on our team, here you have both Charlie and myself, full hand capabilities, but yet probably the best shot on our team was was Tony Laban.
Yeah.
No arms,
Yeah.
no legs. He puts the stick and used this.
No,
his stuff.
Tony was tough.
And
Yeah.
he was, but his accuracy on shooting, we would get a penalty shot where we could take a penalty shot, and the other team was always surprised when we had Tony go out to
And
take
take
the
the shot.
penalty shot because they thought we were trying to be nice because no arms and no legs. Tony would go out there and he would ask us, okay, hey, Mark, Charlie, what corner do you want it? I'm like,
No,
just pick a corner and put it in, Tony. And it's like he was shooting pool. He would call his shot, okay,
Just,
upper left.
just think if he didn't have any issues, what a football player he would have been.
right, 'cause he
Oh,
was a
my
good
goodness.
size.
Yeah.
Tremendous athlete.
Yeah, he was a good sized boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Strong.
Because both Charlie and I had times, because he would play out of his wheelchair, as you know,
Yeah.
hopping around. But then once he got on his back, he needed help back up.
Well, I can't tell you how many times I lifted him up, put him back in the chair.
Oh, yeah, you had to put him, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to just lift him up so he was sitting again because
Yeah.
he was our best shot. So
Right.
me and Charlie, I think, sometimes looked at one another like, okay, who wants to go put him up? Because he hustled and he was real sweaty and all that.
Yeah.
It's like,
There was that I don't think I can think of anybody that wasn't really fun to have in class.
oh, right.
You know, some people didn't like, but I mean, everybody seemed to have a good time.
Yeah, it's like any typical gym class, you have your characters.
Yeah.
And that. So it was, yeah, it was just, and then when we started, I thought it was just really so cool the first time where we went over to Humboldt, because there I felt like we were playing another high school, because the Humboldt team was from Humboldt. We were playing in their gym, and to me that really felt like a high school.
That's where I graduated from.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. And that's one of the Hall of Fames.
Yep.
No, Humboldt was one of the beginning teams.
Right. Yep.
That
Yep.
first group.
And yeah, you went about trying to recruit some of the schools. how difficult was that? I mean, when you went
Well,
to them, and
that's why we put that board together. That's how this people that were interested in doing it, now that they were going to have kids in their buildings, they were all interested in getting involved in making this program work.
okay,
And so this board was extremely useful to be able to get to where we got.
okay. So
I should go on one more thing.
Yep.
After we got this all put together, and the whole thing, what we really wanted was not for us. We wanted the high school league to have this whole thing, so
Right.
that
right,
everybody could be the same.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, like I say, I can't tell you if there aren't any other things that I enjoyed as much as that program. To the fact that we even dealt with United Cerebral Palsy and program with the adults.
Okay.
okay.
My whole family was just, it's a blessing for me. God watched over me.
There you go.
And you guys as well, because you were people that meant a lot to me.
Oh,
Well, thank you.
We appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed the gym class because you treated us like any other
No, it's,
high school. I wanted to be coddled, but you didn't coddle us. Okay.
I didn't do so bad.
No. Yeah.
I look at that, 2 guys here.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't do so bad.
No, you did pretty good.
No, we're still, we're surviving in the world, so that makes a difference.
Yes, yes.
So, we want to thank Ed Prohofsky for this half hour. Great conversation about the origins of adapted sports here in Minnesota. I'm Charlie Brose. He's Mark Knutson. And we're going to see you next time on Disability Landscape. Thanks.